Get those disgusting insects out of my city. They're pests. They're worthless. And so is the girl who raises them. A wealthy factory owner wanted to destroy a poor orphan girl-less butterfly garden because he said it was an eyesore. He called our butterflies useless creatures that contributed nothing to the world. But when a mysterious sickness began killing every plant in the city, when crops failed and gardens died, those same butterflies became the only hope for survival. The creatures he wanted destroyed were the only things that could save his dying world. This is the story of a little girl who raised butterflies in a gray, lifeless city, and how those butterflies brought color back to a world that had forgotten how to live. In a sprawling industrial city where smokestacks painted the sky gray and factories hummed day and night, there lived a little orphan girl named Lily. She was only 11 years old, small for her age, with tangled brown hair and eyes the color of honey. Her clothes were patched and faded, hand-me-downs that had been handed down so many times nobody remembered who owned them first. She lived in a tiny shack at the edge of the city, where the last patch of green struggled to survive against the concrete and steel that surrounded it. Lily had no memory of her parents. They had died when she was just a baby, victims of the same pollution that choked the city. She had been raised by her grandmother, a gentle woman named Rosa, who had taught her everything she knew about love, nature, and the magic hidden in small things. But Rosa had passed away 2 years ago, leaving Lily alone in the world with nothing but a small garden and a heart full of dreams. The garden was Lily's paradise. It wasn't much, by most standards, just a tiny patch of land behind her shack, no bigger than a bedroom. But to Lily, it was everything. She had planted flowers there, wild flowers that Rosa had taught her to grow. Purple lavender, yellow sunflowers, orange marigolds, and pink roses that bloomed despite the gray air. And among those flowers lived Lily's greatest treasures, butterflies. It had started with a single caterpillar that Lily found crawling on a leaf 3 years ago. She had watched and wondered as it built its cocoon, waited patiently for weeks, and then witnessed the miracle of transformation. A beautiful monarch butterfly had emerged, its orange and black wings unfolding like a living painting. Lily had cried with joy. From that moment on, she dedicated her life to raising butterflies. She learned everything she could about them. She discovered which plants they loved, which flowers gave them nectar, which leaves their caterpillars ate. She built small shelters to protect their cocoons from the rain. She woke up at dawn to check on them and stayed up late to make sure they were safe. Over time, her garden became home to dozens of butterflies, monarchs, swallowtails, painted ladies, and blue morphas that shimmered like living sapphires. The people in the neighborhood thought she was strange. Why waste time on bugs? They would ask. What good are butterflies? They don't give milk like cows. They don't lay eggs like chickens. They just fly around and do nothing. But Lily would just smile and say, they make the world beautiful. Isn't that enough? But not everyone was content to simply ignore the little butterfly girl. There was one man in the city who despised everything she represented. His name was Victor Crane, and he was the wealthiest, most powerful man in the entire region. He owned the factories that belched smoke into the sky. He owned the warehouses that covered what used to be forests. He owned the politicians, the newspapers, and nearly every piece of land worth owning. To Victor Crane, the world existed to be used, exploited, and profited from. Beauty was worthless unless it could be sold. Victor had plans to expand his empire. He wanted to build a new factory complex on the east side of the city, right where Lily's little shack and garden stood. He had already bought up all the surrounding land, forced out the other residents, and demolished their homes. Only Lily remained, stubbornly clinging to her tiny patch of green in a sea of gray. At first, Victor tried to buy her out. He sent men in suits with briefcases full of money, but Lily refused every offer. "This is my own," said told them. "My grandmother planted this garden. My butterflies live here. I won't leave." Victor was not used to being told no, especially not by a penniless orphan girl. His patience ran out quickly. One hot summer afternoon, Victor himself came to Lily's garden. He stepped out of his black luxury car, his expensive shoes crunching on the gravel path, and looked around with open disgust. "So this is what's holding up my development?" A pile of weeds and some flying insects. Lily stood in front of her garden, small but defiant. "They're not insects," she said quietly. "They're butterflies? And this isn't a pile of weeds. It's a garden my grandmother built." Victor laughed, a harsh sound without any warmth. "Butterflies? What a waste. They produce nothing. They're as useless as you are." He stepped closer, towering over her. "I'm giving you 1 week to leave. After that, my bulldozers will come whether you're here or not." The other factory workers and businessmen who had gathered around laughed at Lily. "1 week, little bug girl," they mocked. "Say goodbye to your useless pets." Lily watched them drive away, her heart breaking, but her spirit unbroken. She knelt down beside a cluster of monarchs, resting on a sunflower, and whispered, "Don't worry. I won't let them hurt you. I'll find a way." That night, Lily made a decision. If she couldn't save her garden, she would save her butterflies. She would release them into the city, let them find new homes, new flowers, new places to live. Maybe they would survive. Maybe they would spread beauty even in the gray concrete jungle. It was better than letting them die under Victor's bulldozers. Over the next few days, Lily walked through the city with jars full of butterfly eggs and caterpillars. She planted them secretly in window boxers, in forgotten corners of parks, and the tiny gardens behind apartment buildings. She released adult butterflies in the central plaza, near the fountain that hadn't worked in years. She tucked cocoons into the branches of the few remaining trees. The people stared at her like she was crazy, but Lily didn't care. She was giving her butterflies a chance to live. By the end of the week, Lily's garden was empty. Every butterfly had been released. Every egg had been hidden. She stood alone in front of her shack, watching Victor's bulldozers approach, and felt tears streaming down her face. "Goodbye, grandmother," she whispered. "I tried my best." The bulldozers flattened the garden in less than an hour. The flowers were crushed. The shack was demolished. Lily was given a small sum of money and told to disappear. She found a room in a rundown boarding house on the other side of the city, where she cried herself to sleep every night, wondering if her butterflies had survived. Weeks passed. Victor's new factory began to rise where Lily's garden once stood. The city grew grayer, smokier, more lifeless than ever. And then something strange began to happen. The plants started dying. It began slowly, almost unnoticed. A tree here, a shrub there. But soon it became impossible to ignore. Every garden in the city was withering. Every crop in the surrounding farms was failing. Flowers wilted before they could bloom. Vegetables rotted on the vine. Even the weeds, the stubborn survivors that grew in every crack and corner, began to shrivel and die. Scientists were baffled. They tested the soil, the water, the air. They found nothing that could explain the sudden death of every plant. Farmers panicked. Food prices skyrocketed. People began to go hungry. The city that had once proudly called itself the engine of progress was now facing a crisis that no amount of money or machinery could solve. Victor Crane was terrified. His factories depended on raw materials from the farms. His workers needed food to survive. His empire was crumbling, and he had no idea why. He summoned the best scientists, the most expensive consultants, but none of them had answers. And then, one afternoon, an old botanist named Professor Whitman came to Victor with a theory. "It's the pollinators," the professor said gravely. "The bees, the butterflies, the insects that carry pollen from flower to flower. They're gone. Without them, plants can't reproduce. They can't bear fruit. They die." Victor frowned. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" The professor shook his head. "Your factories, Mr. Crane. The pollution, the chemicals, the destruction of green spaces. You've driven them all away. There are no more bees in this city. No more butterflies. Nothing to pollinate the plants. And without pollination, everything dies." Victor felt a cold chill run down his spine. Butterflies. The word echoed in his mind. The little girl with the garden. The one he had mocked. The one whose butterflies he had called useless. "Where is she?" Victor demanded. "The girl who raised the butterflies. Find her. Bring her to me." They searched the city for days before they finally found Lily in her tiny room at the boarding house. She was thin and pale, having having barely eaten since losing her garden. When they told her Victor Crane wanted to see her, she almost laughed. Why would he want to see me? He got what he wanted, but she went anyway. She had nothing left to lose. Victor was a changed man when she arrived at his office. Gone was the arrogance, the cruelty, the dismissive contempt. In its place was something Lily had never expected to see. Fear. "I need your help," Victor said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The plants are dying. The crops are failing. They tell me it's because there are no more butterflies." He paused, struggling with words he had never spoken before. "Primera, es wrong. I was so wrong. Please, you're the only one who understands these creatures. Can you save us?" Lily looked at the man who had destroyed her home, crushed her garden, and mocked everything she loved. She could have refused. She could have walked away and let him suffer the consequences of his greed. But that wasn't who Lily was. "I released my butterflies all over the city before you destroyed my garden," she said quietly. "If any of them survived, they might still be out there. But butterflies need flowers. They need green spaces. They need a city that welcomes life, not one that poisons it." Victor nodded desperately. "I'll do anything. Just tell me what to do." And so, against all odds, an unlikely partnership was born. Victor shut down his most polluting factories. He ordered the demolition of abandoned warehouses and replaced them with parks and gardens. He hired Lily as his advisor on urban ecology, giving her unlimited resources to do what she loved most. Lily searched the city for her butterflies. At first, she found nothing but empty corners and wilted plants. But then, in a forgotten alley behind an old church, she discovered something that made her heart soar. A cluster of monarch butterflies, resting on a patch of wildflowers that had somehow survived. They were alive. Her butterflies had survived. Over the following months, Lily worked tirelessly to rebuild what had been lost. She created butterfly sanctuaries throughout the city. She planted millions of flowers, nectar sources for the pollen. She educated children about the importance of insects, teaching them what her grandmother had taught her. Slowly, miraculously, the butterflies began to return. And with the butterflies came life. Flowers bloomed again. Trees bore fruit. Gardens flourished. The farms surrounding the city reported their best harvests in years. Bees appeared alongside the butterflies, building hives in the new green spaces. Birds returned to nest in the newly planted trees. The gray city began to transform into something beautiful. People who had once mocked Lily now treated her like a hero. They named parks after her. They put her picture in the newspapers. Children followed her through the streets, hoping to catch a glimpse of the butterfly girl who had saved their city. But Lily didn't care about fame or recognition. She cared about the butterflies. She cared about the flowers. She cared about the simple, beautiful truth that her grandmother had taught her so long ago. 1 year after the crisis, Victor Crane invited Lily to a ceremony at the site where her original garden had stood. The factory he had built there was gone, demolished at his own orders. In its place was a magnificent butterfly garden, 10 times larger than Lily's original patch of green. A bronze statue of Rosa, Lily's grandmother, stood at the entrance, surrounded by blooming flowers and fluttering wings. "I can never undo what I did," Victor said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I can try to make it right. This garden belongs to you, Lily. Forever." Lily stood in the garden, tears streaming down her face as monarchs and swallowtails danced around her. She reached out her hand, and a blue morpha butterfly landed gently on her finger, its wings shimmering like a piece of the sky. "They're not useless," she whispered. "Nothing in nature is useless. We just have to open our eyes to see the purpose." Victor nodded, finally understanding the things I called worthless saved my entire city. The girl I dismissed as nothing turned out to be everything we needed. Years later, when Lily was an old woman with silver hair and warm eyes, children would visit her garden and ask about the butterflies. She would sit among the flowers, surrounded by wings of every color, and tell them the story of how the smallest creatures taught the mightiest man the most important lesson. "Everything has value," she would say. "Every creature, every flower, every life. The world isn't made of things that matter and things that don't. It's all connected. The butterfly needs the flower. The flower needs the bee. The bee needs the tree, and we need all of them. When we forget that, we lose everything. But when we remember, when we protect the small and the beautiful, we gain more than we could ever imagine. And somewhere in that garden, among the roses and lavender and sunflowers, a monarch butterfly would spread its wings and take flight, rising into a sky that was no longer gray, but blue, bright, beautiful, and full of life. All because one little girl refused to believe that beauty was worthless. Friends, if this story touched your heart, drop a comment telling me what lesson it taught you. Let me know what country you're watching from. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss more stories like this one. There's more waiting for you right on your screen. Thank you for staying with me until the end.